should we introduce ourselves? Here we are again with our podcast, Trims and Talks. Last week we were joking because when I had to leave early and Lungani took it upon himself there to introduce it as the Lungani Show featuring Donald. So I'm just trying to reclaim my position.
There was no rebranding of anything then. There never was that kind of idea.
Can't it be the Donald and
Lungani show? I think it will work the other way out. The Donald and Lungani show.
It is the Trims and Talk show.
Yeah, the Trims and Talk podcast. Yeah.
It's Lloyd. It's brilliant to have you here today.
Yes,
I mean, we were
definitely.
joking downstairs that we keep on bumping into one another, and every time we bump into one another, you sort yes, and you know what I'm going to say. And Lungani's caught hold of you and done exactly the same. So we are really, really pleased to have you with us today on Trims and Talks.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you. I'm honoured to finally get into the heart because I've been hearing everybody else has been having a conversation.
No, everyone.
Number 18.
What about
Yesterday I was walking in town and I came across Dominic, Slum Bars, and I was like, I'm showing him, like the people we have on the podcast. Like, oh yeah, man, these are heavy hitters, man. I'm like, we got Lloyd tomorrow. He says, make sure you press him,
Yeah, a lot of the youngsters want to press. I feel like kind of slightly deflated because I'm getting pressed from a few different angles by the youngers at the moment because I'm a bit older in my field of music, and I've got all these. I call them young whippersnappers, but they're like 30, it's old in the game, but they're all like, have you stayed around for so long? And I'm like, I just kept a low profile.
So how have you? Because I mean, so music's clearly one of your big interests there.
Totally.
Is this something you've had for a long, long time? Because as you say, we've had a couple of people on before who've they've been into music, gone to different things, like Jonathan there. We had Ryan been into music as well. So there's quite a number of people, they've done music. And then they've done something else, but you've still had music there, very much part of you.
So I didn't really realise it until I kind of analysed it not so long ago that I'd been in like music all my life in one way or the other. So I come from a very musical family. My aunties were all in the choir. I was put out front in the church to sing soprano before my voice broke. My cousins are in church bands and stuff like that. So we've got a very deep and rich kind of musical background. My mum went to school with UB40, and then at 17. I was given an opportunity by one of our next door neighbours who was the PA guy for the big arenas, and it started off with, do you want to come and carry some speakers with us? It ended up with, we've got this spot at this nightclub that we want to fill. Do you guys want to kind of create a hip-hop night? And that was kind of like one of my first tastings of kind of like music management. And then I then managed a group at 18 called Criminal Damage, which was one of the boyfriends of my little sister. And that was kind of like my big launch into hip-hop. And then I was doing promoting, then I came up to Sheffield, continued that kind of activity. And then I ended up in Hoods Underground, the hip-hop group.
I've heard a lot about Hoods Underground. Every time we have, someone's always mentioning the Hoods Underground.
Yeah, it was a bit of a prolific moment for us as youngsters in the 90s, because we was trying to emulate Wu-Tang Clan. So we had members, There
was a lot of people in it.
Well, I think at its maximum there must have been about 15 of us, but there was about, good 10 core members that was there for the whole entirety. And that took us places. You know, we was going up and down the motorway for 3 minutes. You know, all that kind of stupidness, and we was on Radio 1 radio shows and TV and stuff like that. And I wasn't a foreground brother. I was one of the background brothers. So, you know, while they was, you know, making records and going out and performing them, me and Jay Rugged were organising, you know, the hip hop stages for Music in the Sun and hip hop jams and touring around doing the DJing stuff. So yeah, it all kind of progressed from there, and then I got introduced to different strands of black music, you know, like the house, you know, arena and the neo soul and stuff like that. And then I ended up being a neo soul DJ, purely because I've always knew that as black people, we always put ourselves into corners that we can't get out of. So, for instance, if you're not Tim Westwood, yeah, you're gonna have a really hard time being able to express hip hop in its authenticity at, you know, at whatever time it is, yeah, and that's because of the kind of, you know, the content that it have, you know. Whether it was moaning about our oppression or bragging about how much money we had and all that kind of stuff, you know, hip hop has always been a hard genre to kind of push out there, unless you've got kind of power and influence to kind of go, no, we're not listening to licensing and the police, and we're pushing on. So I've always had this kind of, I haven't had an easy road whatsoever. And then because of my experience, I get called back all the time to kind of put some sense in it, or reconnect Sheffield's black music with the wider kind of music community, which is difficult as well, because I'd say that we're struggling with a lot of PTSD and trauma from the oppression that we've had in the music biz. So when we do get opportunities, like the Mobos last year, which was a pinnacle for the city, you do get a lot of animosity from those that didn't get the phone call to work on the project. And what they don't realise is it's a project. You know, to them, it's their life and it's what they've dedicated themselves to. And I totally get that, because I've done the same. But to them, it's just a night of music. You know, it's not that deep for them. So where we're putting on all these, should I say, cultural layers onto it, they're not. They're just, will it make me dance? Will I enjoy myself? Can my kids come? You know, that's the questions that they're asking us. So for me, I've always kind of looked at it from a customer perspective.
Yeah, and the person who innovated, who set it all up, she's was on TV recently. She's got cancer, hasn't she?
Yeah.
She's only got a few months to live, if I'm right.
Well, all right, look at what Kanye, and this is what I'm saying about the oppression, yeah. Kanye's been pushing black music in this country for over 20 years now. And has she been made a lady?
No, and I remember when she first started, I don't know. I remember when she was starting there and she was trying to get it out there and how difficult it was.
Still
and
is.
then, but in particular those days, no one was listening at all to her. And then to see her 20 years later there, and she was very positive and upbeat, but it was the sadness as well that actually I felt that, you know, just as it's starting to get, she's done so much work to get it where it is, and still has all the difficulties there.
Yeah, totally.
But she had to work so hard, and I think one of the things we're hearing there is how much work people have to do, and the disappointment which goes alongside it, the frustration which goes alongside it. And one of the things which we've talked with many people on Trims and Talks, in whatever walk of life they have, you know, as a black person in this country, that, you know, frustration. Frustration.
It is a frustration.
It's just like, it just goes with it.
Well, yeah, it doesn't. I think the irritation is if you work in a black space, you're all in the same space, you're all in the same mindset. But when you're working across the borders, you realise that they've got they've got 30% more freer thought than you have, because they haven't got to contest with what they're putting on, how they're projecting themselves, how they're saying things, who's in their network that can support them to get things over the line.
Well, I think that's what I was trying to say there, in terms of those people who are having to work outside of a black space, which is most black people tend to work outside of a black space in whatever job it might be. It might be working in security, it might be working in teaching, it might be working in a hospital, it might be working in a shop, it might be, you name it, wherever you might work. These are things you may well experience. I'm not going to say everyone experiences it, because everyone experiences it in their different way. But for so many people, that's what they say they experience. And I know it's something which I experienced. I'm sure it's something, I don't know, I'm going to not speak for you, but that's something I experienced.
But you alluded to something about, that has she been made a lady? In terms of kind of,
like a dame.
Dame or whatever. But that's the thing. I'm always, I know there are those who are of that school who say, you know what we are doing. We don't really need to be acknowledged by the status quo, so to speak. To be acknowledged for the work we do, we will do it regardless. And because I worry sometimes that when we are part of the, the
machine.
Of the machine, that we lose something in that whole thing. We lose a sense of us, if it is actually a thing. Because I wonder if, like you, kind of working in those spaces. I mean, you've got pattern and push, and you've got like all this history of other stuff you have done. Do you find yourself, how authentic do you continue to be in those kind of spaces?
That's an interesting question, because I think when I first started my career, especially in so music accepts you for who you are. The more outlandish you are in music, the better. So you're allowed to be individualistic in music. But when you're working in community and community strategy and stuff like that, they want you to wear the shirt. They are irritating when you rock up in a pair of cargo pants, trainers and a cap, purely because they've put on a shirt and tie and made an effort in their head, made an effort for that day, and they don't value what you're bringing to the table. It sounds
a bit like Donald Trump here, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. And for me, as I said, I had these different journeys in different workplaces. So I've been quite lucky that I've worked in the community space for over 20 years. So they kind of take me for who I am in a certain way. But if I go to certain meetings, I know I have to throw on the shirt and make the effort and whatever. But it wasn't until this recent post that I kind of had an HR woman that we had a workshop, and she was talking about bringing your authentic you to work. And I started laughing in this workshop. Bless her, rest in peace, Marge. And she was like, "What are you laughing at?" And I goes, "Well, I'm a Jamaican, and if you want me to bring myself authentic to work, on a sunny day, I might just dash on a string vest and a pair of cargo shorts, because that's how I'm feeling that day." And she goes, "What's wrong with that?" And it was the first time a white person had given me license, if you want to call it, to be authentically me. So that stuck with me.
So I've now got this vision of you at this workplace with your vest. And your bummy.
Exactly. But and that's such a strange thing.
It is, isn't it?
But it's so authentic to us. So if we was in Jamaica and we did the same, it wouldn't get taken.
It wouldn't be a thing,
depending on the job.
And I know, and it's that idea. Even if we're not, the vest bit I can imagine is sort of like you're really making a point there, but it's the sense of, can I bring myself? And actually, even to ask me to bring myself there, I just don't know where you're coming from, because I spent most of my life not being able to bring myself somewhere, and definitely not into the workplace. So I don't even think of it as a option as such there.
No, because we have to code switch.
Yes,
code switch.
But that's it.
Is part of our DNA now. So, so we understand that part of success is being able to be a chameleon in spaces, and not overdo it with our personalities, because we can be a bit noisy and a bit overbearing and whatever to some. But for me, it's about, right, how do you harness the different characters and the different cultures around you when you're oppressing them, You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, if you think of it like a garden, yeah. If we're only letting certain flowers and plants grow, then we're only going to attract certain types of wildlife. You know, when we can attract all the wildlife just by letting the whole garden grow properly. You know, so for me, it's part of the game.
Well, but you're talking there about something which is a very it has an optimistic or positivist sort of take on things, doesn't it? Which is, here we are in a society which is very, very diverse, and if we give people, you know, enough nourishment, then actually lots of different flowers will flower.
Yeah.
And then, but instead what we do is that we give one all the nourishment and then keep others down.
Yeah,
and then the others which do come through, they've had to work so hard, and which is that sort of, I think it's Du Bois talks about the double bind, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what double, triple bind, call it what you will there. That's what many people have had to experience. And we were talking downstairs about, about SACMA and about mental health there. But for so many people, the place of work is a very, very draining place. We know work is draining, but draining above and above, what is many would experience.
No, you're definitely right. But then it's that space of how do you safeguard your well-being in the space that is there to literally kind of take you for everything that you give. That basically that what do you call it? It is based on it is based on your performance, on you being there.
I would agree and disagree. You don't know what you're going to face until you experience it in the workplace. And because I've been in so many different workplaces and been valued in different ways, I tend to kind of hold my line. You asked me to come here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm about because I've got a reputation before I even get in the room.
Yeah.
I get that a lot. Oh, I've heard about you. People that I haven't never met. Oh, I've heard your name, etc., etc. And I'm like, oh, what have you heard? You get that bit of anxiety.
Yeah.
From who?
We're going to take it back. So we didn't know Lloyd.
I didn't know Lloyd at all.
We meet this guy up on the street.
I preferred my anonymity. And I think that's something that I've been working on over the past 5 years. Is kind of like, how can I descend back onto the pavement nice and easy?
But that's actually very difficult, isn't it? I mean, for many black people who work in settings where they could be the only black person in that position, and so on and so forth. They'll actually, being invisible is impossible.
Yeah,
and that's difficult. That is very, very difficult indeed.
It's more difficult than you think. So imagine this: I was on the streets doing my badness. And I was known for my badness. Got put in the papers and stuff like that. I come from a very kind of Christian middle-class family. So, of course, that wasn't accepted by my own family.
Birmingham. Birmingham.
Yeah, from Birmingham. And then I'm launched into these spaces of different levels of oppression and racism. And I'm trying to make my way up because I've got a family to feed. I've got to drive. I can see I could do that a bit better if I was given the opportunity, kind of mentality. And then I start making my way up the ladder, and then your own community turns on you. And then you kind of going, right, what have I done? Do you know what I mean? On one side, I'm getting, mum's kind of going, you're a role model, keep doing what you're doing, you're very visible in the community, thank you, and all that kind of stuff. And then on the other side, I got all these people going, who do you think you are? You're from Birmingham, this is our patch, who do you think you are? All this kind of stuff from your own community. And you're kind of going, right, where am I here? Mentally, you've got to be tough.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the pressure, isn't it? I mean, so for instance, if let's just say you were, the black ed teacher,
Yeah.
The black head teacher, that people are going to be on one hand very proud that you've got that
Yeah.
person who's a head teacher, but at the same time is that there's going to be many people there who think, who does that person think they are? Especially
Exactly.
when they're disciplining my child in a way I don't like.
No, but
But
don't
for that person, it's really, that must be a very, very difficult, role to perform, isn't it?
But that's the thing. It's like I was speaking to somebody this morning about the fact that most of our critics are from our own community.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so, how do you straddle that space where David Banner? David
Yeah,
Banner.
but
wait.
this is what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
like they try and make you bipolar.
Yeah.
And that's when you lose your own authenticity. That's when you lose yourself.
Yes.
But how do you? Because I was going to allude to a point that David Banner said. He said, "If you like me, for me, then support me.
But it's
No,
hard- but
if you
it-
like,
it's hard-
if
but
you
it's-
want me to be me,
Yeah.
then support me."
But it's hard. But it's hard to defend the green monster, isn't it? When once you do lose it, and I think that's our fear is that, if I lose it, then what am I going to lose? Whereas your other colleagues can have a little moment and they get sent off sick and home for 3 months on full pay.
Yeah.
You're getting a warning or your exit papers.
Well, which is what
Yeah.
I think for many, and if you don't get that, you're worried you are going to get that,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
all of that eats away at you, and so you end up with lots of people there. Well, I say lots there, but to my mind, you can see how we were talking downstairs, and I was saying to you about the Maudsley Hospital and how the Maudsley Hospital, which is in London, there 50% of the people there are black people, many of whom are over 60, many of whom their illness came on later on in life.
Yeah.
For all sorts of reasons, maybe dealing with all the things they dealt with as children, as young people, all of the things they experienced as young adults, and then you mount on top of it all of these things with work, which takes up so much of your life in your sort of like that very sort of like 20 to 60 period, and then actually you end up at some point, you can't manage anymore, you can't cope anymore.
And I think that's about positioning because, all right, and let's look at the reality of the situation. Why do we go to work, especially in the UK? We want to achieve as much as our parents and grandparents, even though that's really hard to achieve in with today's kind of economic setup. But we also want to gain some kind of status. We want to feel like we've lived and contributed. And I'd say it's one of the hardest things to do within the black community because if you're not the preacher man, then everything else around that is a downward slope. And it's partly because of how we see and perceive each other. What we've been programmed to be. And our kind of, should I say, cultural foolishness. So Caribbeans against Africans, all of us against Americans, all this kind of stuff. So, there's a lot of division within the black diaspora. But when you've got stuff that's throwing grenades in there as well, just to kind of, keep us on our toes, because I'm very observant, and I've observed a lot of our elders, because I've been quite lucky to be kind of cuddled by the elders of the city and kind of they've seen the potential in me and kind of go, yo, come over here, I want to tell you something, and they've given me their gems, but have we given them their flowers for their hard work? No. Do we recognise our black elite, especially in this city? No, we don't.
No, we don't.
So where are the aspirational points for our kids to actually work hard and build those status? They're hardly there.
Well, so you know, we're going back then to another thing that I mentioned earlier about visibility.
Yeah.
On one hand, part of us want to be invisible, but at the other end, there is nearly a not responsibility, but the benefits of being visible, but visibility particularly to, the African Caribbean community in the city. You have to be visible as well in whatever way you can, because without that, you can't be what you can't see.
Yeah.
So that 15-year-old can't think of themselves as being X, Y, and Z if they can't see X, Y, and Z already. And I'm saying that in the positive X, Y, and Z.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about the bad X, Y, and Z.
Totally.
You can always see badness.
It's one of my theories. So as I was growing up, I struggled to find that positive black role model, and mine was a youth worker called Donald. And I realised I'd become that person just from the positions that I was getting in, and a common kind of opinion comment to me is, "You look good." But I know it's a responsibility to look good. I know it's a responsibility of mine that I've got to have on certain trainers, just so there's a connection point with me and a youngster, because young people will come and talk to me about my clothes, and it's been generations. I'll be sitting outside King's Cross Station eating lunch before I get on my train back home, and somebody go, "I love your drip today." You know what I mean? And I haven't done anything to deserve that, except for I've put on somebody else's clothes that and I'm worn them. But it's a connection point, and what I feel that our community have lost their way in is we aspire to the car, we aspire to be invisible, we aspire to hiding our success and wealth, purely because of the issues within our community of jealousy and stuff like that, because. The reality is 90% of our community is struggling. There's only 10% that have really got it sussed and nice. And then kind of everybody looks at that 10% as who do they think they are.
Yeah. And maybe, do you think, I don't want to overdo that there, because, it might be that people they have moments when they want more from other people.
Yeah.
Right. But most of the time, they're just trying to get on with their world, which has its own pressures, its own sort of... And one of the things I found working at SACMA, I have to say, is that when SACMA have been involved in things, I've been quite pleased with a sense of people just get on with things and do things and enjoy one another's company. And yes, people fall out and people will say things about people, etc. But a lot of the time there is just this sort of it's not done on a fancy level.
But isn't that also kind of like because of to your point about the state of us as a community, if we can even call it that, because I'm one of the few people who still believe that, because of the fragmentation of the so-called black community, we can't really kind of in all fullness call it a community, because we don't sit around the table as a collective and strategize for the city.
Here's my pushback on that. I work in communities and I see different kinds of formats. Loose, tight, in the middle. At the moment we're in a loose situation. It doesn't mean that we're not a community. We still have a lot of unity. Yeah. We still will gather to...
But in small pockets, are you?
No. I think that's a perception,
And I think your point there about we still gather. We gather on many different levels and different things there. Yeah. And I take your point there, which is on a political level there. Yeah. Maybe you can't see a political representation.
No, it is not.
But in terms of, people meeting up, and I think I was trying to allude to that a little bit there with just my little experience with, say, SACMA there and going to a few events there. But actually you see people, I think I'm surprised, I haven't seen so-and-so. And there's a connection, but yes, take your point about the political strategization, but isn't that something about in Britain as a whole then?
Yeah,
does that reflect? Because that's not just Sheffield, is it?
But maybe that's probably a British white thing. But because we're in Sheffield,
yes.
So really, my focus has always been in the city, and I worry that unless we are around those tables, because you always find there are certain people that are castigated with the responsibility of the black community. And they are doing the best they are doing. But I think, for me, it goes back to that thing. If we are into this thing, we will support those who are representing us. And then we have a focal point, because we don't really have much of reference. Yes, of course, we have Sadaka, we have Sakma, we have the churches.
Well, okay, I think I may have said this one to you before then, which is, and I've said it in other settings, which is, you know, people have to put their head above the parapet, don't they?
Yeah.
In whatever walk of life they lead, you know, people will say we need more of this, more of that, more of that, more of that. In whatever you do, put your hand up and take a lead, maybe, in whatever you do.
Yeah,
But
no,
for
it's
all
true.
sorts of reasons, some people say, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's it. That's.
For
I
all
think
sorts
that's
of
where
reasons. And some people will do, but some people don't.
So my pushback is, okay, let's look at the kind of current political kind of landscape. Tell me a person of colour, let's broaden it as well, that's in the upper levels of politics that can be authentic.
None.
Right. So there's one point. So to become a leader in those spaces, what you have to sacrifice a lot of the time is your community, your respect within your community, the loyalty within your community, yeah, and then that kicks onto your family as well.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Just so you can have a bit of power that you'll never be able to massage into your community. Because the point of us becoming political leaders is to steer the power vein into our communities, hence so we can be able to be economically viable and thrive from that situation. Now, we will never get into that situation in this country. We've got a Nigerian at the moment that's the head of the Conservative Party. Is she vouching for black values? No, she's leaning more into right-wing values than Nigel Farage. You know, so the point that I'm making here is leadership is a lonely place. Success is a lonely place in the black community, purely because there is so much suspicion around that power, that influence. So for me, in the position that I am in, like, remember, I've come off the streets. Yeah, everything that I'm doing, I'm actually pinching myself. You know, I'm actually, you know, reflective, very reflective, and kind of going, you know what, I'm actually in a good position here. You know, I might not be in the best position I can be. You know, so people perceive me as being much wealthier and all the rest of it, you know, than I actually am. I'm still normal like everybody else. It's just that I've got a bit of influence, and I get wheeled out once in a while in the newspapers as, oh, here's the nice guy, you know, that's doing really good projects. But I'd say it's one of the loneliest spaces because A, I've got to maintain that status. B, within my community, I've got to be mindful of who I mix with, purely because I don't know who's watching them at what time and what they're doing. Even though me and them can connect on such a deeper level that, you know, it's cool, but what they do for work and what I do for work keeps us separated. But also, for me, I think it's that loneliness of not being able to be successful, working, because there's loads of us really working hard, digging the trenches deep, and not getting out of them.
Yeah, I mean, one of a guy said to me, he's a businessman, a local black businessman, and we were talking, and it was that phrase about being lonely. And you know, there's lots of people out there, lots of guys and women and guys that are out there who are trying to make their way ahead in whatever it might be, and putting a lot of effort into it. But that's one of the things they say, that they're on their own.
Yeah.
You know, they feel they're on their own, and that does sort of wear away at people. You know, weathers away at people there, because it's a lot of pressure, and you can see how, you know. I remember, it's a personal story. My sister, when, you know, she passed now a long time ago, but she tried to set up a business back in the 70s in London, and she became unwell, mentally unwell. And that's a story I've heard quite a bit of, which is people try to take on board this entrepreneurial sort of like vein there, because they want to actually work for themselves. They want to actually create something for themselves. And the pressure's been too much for them, and they become unwell.
Yeah,
but I mean, that's basically kind of. I don't disagree with what you are saying. I'm just saying maybe there's something that's fundamentally broken in us.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
No. What I'm saying is, I'm saying maybe there's something that we ain't seeing, right? Because for us to be a community and still feel like we are the only one in those spaces, then there's something fundamentally kind of broken in the sense that you know,
for us, not for them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, for us, because I mean, you know, I am for support systems. I am for surrounding myself with people who resonate with me in terms of kind of the stuff that I am doing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, like when
the irony of what we're discussing today is we started off at the same place at the same time.
Yes.
In media.
Yeah.
Like 20 odd years ago.
Yeah, 20 years
Northern
ago.
Media School.
No, over 30 years ago.
Over 30 years ago in Northern Media School. And look at our journeys.
Yeah.
And we've had to kind of jump in and out and kind of manage the rough seas and all that kind of stuff. And how have we stayed relevant in our workplaces? You know what I mean? It's been the battle. And if we hadn't had all of that challenge, how further could we have been in our career?
Well, I think that's one of the points. I mean, my background's very different to yours. It's been you and I have touched a number of times there. But I know my best working experience was when I was in a team where there was another black person in that team. And it wasn't because we always agreed. I don't want to agree with anyone all the time there, but there were things where I knew that actually we were coming from the same page.
Yes.
That we're coming from the same page. We may have different interpretations of that same page.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we were coming from that same page.
Maybe also is you know, like sometimes we talk about allyship. And then there's like some big thing in ally. But wouldn't it be interesting, like because I think like one thing that you mentioned, you alluded to was the fact that, you know, like the, you know, West Indian or African or this and that, but in essence we are the same.
Totally.
Maybe is allyship is not just necessarily us kind of extending our hand to the Caucasian brethren, but it's like
to each other,
to us. You know, kind of,
and that's why I'm in Sheffield. So you know, I came from Birmingham wheel spinning because I was in a lot of violent kind of conflict. And the one thing that I found that was really, really strange was the connectivity in Sheffield with the black community. So when I first came in here, I found it amazing that I could move from one side of the city to the other. You know, family were all over the place. You know, people were connected, you know, through the family in the church. Even on the streets. And for me, I was like, "Raw, you guys can chill with each other, and it's not
that wasn't something you were.
It was alien to me because we'd descended into gang warfare in my kind of teenage years in Birmingham through a few films. So there was New Jack City.
I mean, everyone, we talk about New Jack City, always gets referenced.
It has to. You know the writers of that movie and Wesley have a lot to answer to because there was a lot of emulation of that film in our black communities globally, purely because it was the first time that we had a character that was on the same level as Scarface. Am I my brother's keepers? You know what I mean? The lines were getting fed to us, you know what I mean? So of course we could walk away from that film and we'd have these tropes that was like saying to our boys, and then it was like, all right, we're gonna be like them, you know what I mean?
And Wesley Snipes was cool.
Yeah, but it was a persona.
Of course, it was a persona.
Yeah, it was a persona.
I actually preferred him in Blade.
It's true. No, I preferred him in Blade.
But if you look at the significance of what that film actually did to black communities, before that, we was in a roots and culture mode. We was watching Burning Spears and films from Jamaica and the Caribbean.
But you could take that back to music then, can't you? Because I mean, you said you were sort of like a a I forgot their name. Mine's gone now. Because when I was growing up, there was two music.
Yeah.
There was soul man and there was reggae man.
Yeah.
And it was roots man.
Right.
There were the two areas you had there. Soul man wanted to go out and dress up and everything else there, whereas roots man was all consciousness, etc. there.
Yeah.
But then you see how reggae music itself changes over time. So there's always periods where there's something metamorphosizes over time
but look
for all
at
sorts of different influences.
That period was so in my house, especially my grandma's
You can have both
house,
for the prayer for.
So my mum's house was reggae.
Yep.
My nan's house was gospel. I grew funky dreads. First thing my grandma was doing was dragging my hair, going,
"Not in my yard,
not in
not in my house."
But if you looked at what was going on,
yes,
the Rasta man was teaching us our culture, and the gospel was teaching us how to be controlled. You know. So for me, it was like, I don't know where I'm going here, because I hear what Marcus Garvey, Bob Marley, everybody was telling me and kind of enlightening me to what was coming. But I've also got the Bible kind of going, second you can, you know what I mean, and follow the road, you know what I mean?
But isn't that then that sort of like what someone once said to me there, that we are all many different things, we're like, call it like a diamond, you've got 7 sides, and then we have these different sides. It's clearly, and if you're, for some, you're just immersed completely in one thing, right?
Yeah.
For others, they've got different sides to themselves there. And sometimes they have a difficulty of reconciling those different sides.
And that's because of the mental health that we inherit. So a lot of us inherited kind of like poor mental health because of what our ancestors have gone through and passed down.
Well, we talked there about the intergenerational sort of like trauma, which, and you can see how that can play out there. We were talking there before about growing up and parents and fatherhood and, however your father was, they were once a child. And before that again. And all those things which they would have experienced has come down to you. And then you've got your own, which is how are you with your own children? So that actually you are giving them the best sort of like environment psychologically and emotionally, which you can provide for them to be able to contend with what's outside there.
And then there's a background fear. So the background fear is mental health, getting put in a mental health institution. So I've got 2 bipolar relatives. I've experienced it all my life. There are episodes and kind of, should I say, interments into these spaces.
Well, I have the same as well. And I don't know about you, but for my age group, that we didn't say it. We didn't talk about it. We're talking about it now. But, most people, I knew many people when I was growing up who later on I realised they had a sister or a cousin who was unwell.
Yeah.
And that's how I used to say, they're unwell,
Look, every family,
every family, yes.
has got one serious individual that's struggling with mental health.
Absolutely.
In an institute, have been in an institute for like 30 years and nobody
Do you
knows.
ever think back on your own life, though, that for the grace of... Because I look back on my life and think to myself, you know what? It don't take that much to you to...
No, it doesn't.
For you to...
It really doesn't.
Because we've all wobbled.
Yeah.
No, I don't know about you, but I've wobbled. And how does that wobble and that bend, which is what you could call is sort of the, life, how does it, in some cases there, that actually stopped you from breaking?
Family.
But that's the thing, for me...
Family.
Is it family?
It's family.
If you know his mom, let me tell you, your mom will sort you out anytime.
I'm built differently.
So you said family then. So what is it
family,
for you that family keeps? Because others would say they've got families, strong families, and all the other bits, etc. But they've broken at that point there. And I'm saying broken in a sense, and that's not the right word because when I talk about I'm using my own example there, which is, sometimes, I don't know, you look back on, you look, oh, geez, how did I get through that? Or I was in a bad place then, I didn't realise I was in a bad place. That's the worst bit. Well, you don't even realise that you were not too good.
I'm lucky. personally because I've got the mother that I have, and she's been through so much that she's been able to impart on resilience. So, you know, I come from a very kind of, should I say, funny family. You know, if we're not laughing, there's something up. Because each one of us will kind of, you know, it's like a challenge.
So resilience then.
So the resilience within our family is quite deep. But also, if you haven't got a member in your family that is open and willing to accept you for who you are, then you're always going to be, you know, on the edge of mental health issues, because a lot of it is about acceptance. A lot of it's about being accepted within your own group, let alone the wider diaspora. You know, if you're not accepted within your own family group and you're seen as the black sheep, then that sends you over the edge. So my mum's the black sheep of her generation, and you know, being the eldest son.
But even that phrase, you know, it's racist. It's racist. It is. You know, the language we have around us is so.
Oh, we used the term picnic. You know, I bet you a lot of black people don't understand that it's about turning a black person on a spit over a fire. That's where the word comes from. But for me, you know, being brought up by this woman that kind of did it the hard way. You know, we was in dire poverty, you know, and I only can say that now because I understand poverty in its reality. You know, we was regularly going at least one day in that house without food. As you know, 4 kids, you know, and herself she's struggling to bring us up on the benefit system. We knew the benefit system inside and out, you know, the milk tokens, standing up in queue on a Monday morning outside the post office so we could get something to eat before we went to school, all them kind of things. And for me, that is designed to send you over the edge, because the reality of it is the country is just that rich that we can give everybody a set wage, and then everybody gets on with their passions, and, you know, but we don't want to use that format. We want to use an oppression format which exploits migrants using racism, because that's, you know, if you look at racism in its core form, what it's there to do is to exploit other races to make, you know, the colonists more comfortable.
The racial capitalism, as Eric Williams coined it back in the 1930s.
And what we're seeing here in the UK is they can't leave that offshore. They have to experiment with us inshore with those. And so we've been a very good experiment for them to then take out to the rest of the world and oppress other communities. And for me, it's understanding that. And there, you can be too woke as a black person. You can understand too much of the system, which then kind of irritates and frustrates the life out of you, because you can't do nothing about that unless you move country. And for me, it's kind of like the problem there is when my grandparents came, they didn't come for long term, but they ended up having to be long term because of the structure that was around them. You know, they had to get a mortgage to live in a decent area without any kind of harassment. You know, they had to conform to all these values. They couldn't kind of, you know, put their money to one side, ready to go back home. And then if you look at Jamaica has changed since we emigrated from it, because what we did was we sent money back home because we were empathic, you know. So, you know, our families back home have lived off our kind of hard work, but they haven't understood the struggle. They haven't understood the context.
But that's often the case, isn't it? I mean, we talk about this a lot there, but, you know, when people migrate and people are sending money back home as remittances.
You mean black tax?
Call it what you will there. But it's very, very difficult, isn't it? Very, very difficult for those back home as such to ever really understand what it's like, how people have had to make a living, wherever it might be. So we were talking with someone at work there who has come from Zambia. And, you know, is it what he expected? No, it's not what he expected. what was it you expected? How did you come to expect that? Well, you come to expect it from what you see on the TV, from the social media, by the people are talking about, what they're talking about, the amount, even the money which you convert into your local money.
Into local money.
And you think, this is fantastic. No one's talking about purchasing power. They're just simply talking about, this turns into X amount of dollars. Yeah. So you can see how all that works out for people in terms of those sorts of experiences and how difficult it is. Because when I was growing up, people would say, Jamaicans would say, so is it true that black man goes mad in England? And you have to look at the figures and say,
You're not even drinking a good rum.
Yes, you're turned mad.
No, but my question for you then is, at what point did you then, because you talk about your genesis, and then you moved to Sheffield, and then at what point did you suddenly decide that you're going to pursue the, because now
my son was born. Yeah,
when your son was born.
So I grew up with a father, but not with a father. So my father, coming in and out of my life periodically when he wasn't in jail or, messing about with his other kids and stuff. And the pain and the trauma from that experience, I swore to myself that, when I had kids, if I was going to have kids, I'd bring them up myself because, I'd always had that hankering feeling of wanting to be alongside my dad. And then when I was alongside my dad, I was like, I can't be dealing with this geezer. He's doing my head in. So for me, it was like, right, I've got to start from scratch in fatherhood, and I've got to do it properly. So I just made a commitment to my kids, and then part of that commitment was, you got to do it the hard way. I might have, there might be some really hard times, but the difference will be, I'll be out on the streets, looking after them myself, and rather than from, over a phone or through jail bars. And for me, that was a really big motivator, just kind of having those two boys and kind of them, just realizing that I'm somebody in their life.
Yeah. We talked about that when we were downstairs there, about trying to break that cycle. And it takes a lot sometimes to even sort of like acknowledge, back to your point about acknowledge, this is how fatherhood, what I experienced, might have been for me. And to say, actually, it's not what I wanted, it's not what I needed.
No, but I would say that I've been quite lucky. So being...
Not your fault, I'm talking about what you may have experienced as a child.
Yeah, well, I would say, as I said, I've been quite lucky because... I've had good people around me, uncles and, good male
role models.
So, it hasn't always been doom and gloom.
No.
But I've also been lucky that the community in Sheffield have helped me bring up my children.
Yeah.
So my legacy is much deeper now in the sense of I've got two boys, one granddaughter. My oldest son was moaning to me the other day that he'd been working 15 days straight, grabbing whole loads of overtime. Yeah. And, in the back of my head, I'm thinking...
Proud.
You're sorted.
Yes, because you can work.
I can phone you to borrow money.
Yeah.
And then...
that, I like that, because I know where I said my son, when he left uni and he was getting his first job, and I said to him, half of your work is simply about... going every day and being on time. And that's when I got into my 30s and I was beginning to understand my dad a bit more. I used to reflect on the workplace, his workplace. I remember going to his workplace when I was 17 and having to go into this steel foundry and being assaulted by the heat and the noise. And I thought, this is where this man every Monday to Friday would work. No wonder on Sunday evening time he would. Absolutely. Yeah. But there's been, and again, I think a whole generation of men who came here in the 50s there did that type of work for 30 odd years, which you can't understand when you're 15.
Yeah.
You know, you don't understand it. When you get older and you have to do work yourself, you understand what your dad had to do. And then your mom then had to go work in a factory as well, then come home and then do a second job, etc., to put food on the table, etc. You get that when you're older and you understand, because when you're young, so you don't understand
you just vex at your parents.
Yes, you vex at them.
They're not giving you the education that you want.
Yes.
You're living next to a white family, and they've got a whole different existence to your existence.
Yes.
And you're kind of thinking, wait, they're working less and they're living more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we're working hard, but we're not. And then you're bringing up yourself, because I remember them years where my mum used to working at taxi rank and all them places, and I was running the house for her, so and she did the same with her parents.
Yeah.
So for me, it's
and there's families now like that now.
Yeah.
That's the bit there. There's lots and lots of families like that now, where it is a daily sort of. It's hard.
But I would say the difference now is our aspirations for our kids have changed. So when my mum was just happy for me to just get a job, I've got two sons that, one's been to university, the other one's a footballer. For me, I'm sitting here kind of going, did I create this? For me, I wasn't hoping for this much success. I was hoping that, just to stay out of jail, because in the black community, sometimes you kind of work to the lowest denominator and everything above it is a bonus. And for me, I was like, no, just as long as they get through school healthy, they don't deal drugs, they don't feel desperation to feel drugs, they don't see any alignment to the street culture that's around them, I'm going to be happy, you know what I mean? And they can build what they want to build from there. And I would say I've been blessed that, I've been able to take my kids to work so they can see my working environment because I've worked in community settings. They've had loads of different role models around them, the teams that I've worked within and all that kind of stuff that I've worked with them. They've been part of those teams. So, I've been able to kind of, make them coaches at really young ages. And, I've had a different line to most of my peers and colleagues around me, that I've had to kind of work the hard way. But I would say that's just how the cards fall in this society. Some of us fall on good steps, and some of us fall on the horrible snakes that kind of take you back to square one. And I think I'm not out of that space. I'm still conscious of. I'm still 5 times more likely to go into a mental health institute.
Your snakes and ladders bit analogies are quite a good one, because as you were talking, I'm thinking to myself, I'm still mindful I'm not going to step onto something which is going to make me go racing down that ladder.
No, but that's it. That's
down the snake, sorry.
But that's always sitting in the background. So I know myself, at being 5 times more likely to get dashed in jail or a mental health institute, I've got to be a certain type of person out on the street. And then when I come home, I can relax. And I think that's part of the problem, is that, this society creates bipolarness within our community. We call it code switching, but it's bipolar. You have to behave and think differently in different spaces just because of how you perceive people will perceive you. Because I'm a 6'1" black man.
Do white people sit next to you on the bus then?
Yeah, they do, because I don't know.
Because I quite like it when they don't, because I can just sit on the seat on my own. Because I don't like any man sitting with me.
It depends on what time of day and what format. So there's a difference between the bus and the tram, and the train. Big differences. Yes. Yeah. I get more love on the tram. I enjoy the tram much more as a form of public transport. Bus, no, forget that. It's like the OK Corral on buses at the moment. Trains, oh gosh, trains are just like a monopoly of well, not a monopoly. It's like this random situation.
It depends where you're coming from,
people
man.
that wouldn't sit with each other sit with each
Yeah,
other.
well, you're forced to, aren't you? Because you've got a seat ticket or whatever there. But I mean, on the bus, where you can be sitting there, and there you are, and there all the seats are getting occupied.
But then it's like what I'm sort of kind of intrigued with is how do you then juggle the different spaces that you inhabit? Because I mean, you're a father, a youth worker.
Yeah.
You work with Pattern and Push, and the myriad of other things. How do you stay motivated? Is not the point, but how do you?
I'm neurodiverse.
Welcome, welcome to the club, bro.
So, I think a lot of us are neurodiverse in our community, and we don't get taught how to use that power well. So, I was lucky, working in media. A lot of us are neurodiverse. They have to be, because you have to move your focus and brain or to a whole bunch of things, but you have to get the product to the line. And for me, I can compartmentalize things. I've had a lot of discussions. I understand the issues from different perspectives. So I understand it from the white perspective. They're scared. After 600-700 years of repression on the people, you don't want to see the consequences of that.
Oh, you don't.
So what do? You keep on going in the same vein, because of that fear of you hear it all the time. It's like, oh, you black guys are this, you black guys are that, and it's always about your superpower compared to them. And so for me, I understand the fear and understand why we're in the position that we are, and I understand that it's not everybody, it's a small elite that are influencing the majority that then oppress our community. So you kind of you can see the chain of the chain reaction. So for me, I know that within the white diaspora, I have got allies, and rather than sitting in a pit of misery and hate, I utilize the allies. I kind of work with those that want change, that want to have harmony, that want to see happiness within our communities, and for everybody. Because you know what, unhappiness for the black community also means unhappiness for the white community, and what we'll see.
It's quite contagious, unhappiness, isn't it?
It is.
It is very.
It's much easier to be unhappy than to be happy, and especially in this culture where you're always getting shown something of, you haven't got this, you're not this, you ain't driving that, you haven't got this house and whatever. So you're always shown things that are supposed to be achievable, but they're a million miles away from you because of your situation. And you're thinking, well, my grandparents had less, but they've got more. How's this working for? So you've got to rationalize a lot of things. And for me, I'm a very rational person. I'm good in chaos. So the work that I've done in over recent years is gang mediation, conflict resolution, all that kind of stuff I was really comfortable in. But I also realised how dangerous it was for me and my family to be in that space, and what my reputation was turning into. So I was moving away from the good guy into the guy that can stand in amongst all this drama and conflict and sort it out. And I was like, but I'm not that guy. Really, I'm just a brave guy that's willing to pick up the phone and have a conversation with two warring groups and kind of go, right, can we find some peace in this situation, because everybody's watching you and you're going to get locked up for 15 years. There are other choices. Let's talk them through. You know what I mean? So for me, it wasn't hard being that practitioner. But it was hard being that practitioner, because what I was realising was every night, every situation that I was sorting out, I was getting residual kind of effects off it. So, it's like a bean, you're dropping one bean in the cup. After a year of dropping those beans in the cup, that cup becomes full. How do you empty it? And then I also realised that was me trying to hold off my own traumas. So it wasn't until I was taken off I was bamboozled into going to a trauma weekend with 20 odd other men, and I had an epiphany in the middle of a field full of cow dung, about.
It's probably the best place to get one of those epiphanies.
Well, yeah, it was like, you know, it was that reflective moment where you kind of went, oh, I've been such an idiot for so long.
Yeah.
And there's been so many people that have loved me and tried to carry me through this idiot character that I haven't really acknowledged them or seen them, you know, seen what they was trying to do and achieve with me. And that moment led me to apologise to a lot of exes, who then turned around to me and said, I needed that. So I was like, right, you know, by me healing, I could actually heal the wounds that I'd created. Yeah. And for me, it was just kind of like, you know.
How's that affected then, say, relationships with, not to say the intimate others, but with just friends? And, you know, because one of the things we've talked about before, we went to Fade's barbershop and we did, it was a great experience of getting men to talk about, when was the last time you said, I love you?
Yeah.
And there was a little bit, what?
No, I've got a group of friends that are really secure in their manhood, and even if they was gay, we wouldn't be bothered. You know, like I've, you know, the confines of my community and culture, I've kind of pushed away. You know, like, because, you know, there's good and bad in every community, and, you know, and for me it was like, what am I gaining from these relationships? That's my principle. Yeah. That's my, you know, it's not transactional. It's more about, are we aligning in our frequency? Yeah. Are we aligning in our ethics? Can we have debates and kind of, you know,
safe, and where we still, you know, we're not trying to win.
No.
To beat, we're just trying to learn. We're trying to be open. We're trying to be curious.
That's it.
I've got to give Longani his due here. He's great to talk with because he's open. You know, even when he talks the daftest things. It makes me laugh, but it makes me think.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, and now, you know, I like...
And that's what we're missing in
yes,
our community.
That's it, that's it, bro.
There's a challenge, there's a curiosity, there's something there which just makes you don't stay still.
That's it, bro.
And coming back to your point of unity and stuff like that, is where are the spaces for that?
Yeah.
So it's not about whether we're in the political spaces or whatever. Do we get, or do we create spaces where we as men can come and have a safe conversation about what's bugging us that day, or the issues that we find hard to kind of to process?
Yes.
You know,
I'll advertise them. Two groups I'm a part of, Man Talk, which is run at SACMA the last Friday in the month, and Fades do a men's group as well. Personally, I'd love to see more.
No, that's it.
You know, I find them really, really supportive environments in which a group of guys can just come and talk.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it makes me think more. I'll tell you one of the things it makes me remember is that when you were 15 and you had a group of mates and you were just looking out in the world and starting to think about the world, and you'd sit and you just
dreaming about the girls,
and you'd dream of the girls. You'd be talking about all sorts of stuff there, and you'd go back and forth. But there was something there which made you feel quite sort of like safe with it, but also you were looking outward at the same time. But the process itself was actually like a warm blanket.
So, how was your mental health?
I'm a bit. I'm good. As I said, I'm built slightly differently, so it takes extreme situations for me to kind of start mentally breaking down. I think that, you know, so for instance, when my mum got stabbed, I was fostered out for 3.5 years, 4 years, and being separated from your family at 6 is probably one of the hardest journeys that I've ever had. What made it even weirder was my foster parents were in the same congregation as my family. So I'd see my aunties, cousins, grandparents and whatever in the same church, you know, on a Sunday, and then I'd have to go home with these foster parents. So it was weird, you know. Normally it would have been my grandma bringing me to the church on the Sunday because I'd go to my grandma's for the weekend, and then, you know. go back on the Sunday night, and all of a sudden my routine's changed. I'm separated from my family, and isolated from my family as well, because they wanted to make me theirs and shape me. And for me, it was just a massive learning curve for me. So I can kind of see life in a different way, you know, like I always tell myself, it's been worse, and you got through it. You know what I mean? So that kind of grounds me and kind of going, right, you know, you break it down into smaller steps. What do I need to do to get out of this space? I need to get up out of this bed. I need to go and put on some clothes.
Yeah.
You know, it's those simple things that kind of like then kind of lead me into kind of going, right, you're wasting time and you haven't got that much left. What are you going to achieve today? You know, who's waiting for you to do whatever you need to do, you know, because I've got a lot of people leaning on me to do what I've got to do so they can do what they got to do. So I tend to kind of just break it down into those smaller conversations rather than how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay these bills? You know, who's going to pay for my holiday this year? You know, which job is going to, you know, how far can I go this year? You know, am I going Spain or am I going Mexico this year?
Yeah.
You know, it's just
I'm getting up this morning.
yeah.
Yeah.
Those smaller
Yes.
conversations allow me to kind of then put it into bite-sized chunks and deal with it that because I know that I can achieve big things. You know, that's not an issue, you know, but I know the work that it takes to achieve those big things, but it's the smaller things in life that for me that suffer.
I'm going to steal one from Lungani. Lungani normally asks this question, but I'm going to ask this question this time. You know, which is, what is it then which basically is your thing, which sort of like just gives you, you know, a little bit of, you know, comfort, enjoyment, just takes you away from it all. You know, for some people it might be walking, some people it might be their music, some people it might be just simply being in the garden. What's your thing?
Two, yeah. Good music, a good playlist.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's on your playlist then? What's
what's
playing a lot now?
So, people like Liam Bridges. My tune at the moment is called Mutt. You know, your Music Soul Child, Erykah Badu. You know, so I was heavily into neo soul. Neo soul is more is like the contemporary kind of conscious music.
Yeah.
So you know, I've got a room full of vinyl. So. You know,
when still got your vinyl?
Yeah, when it really gets dark, I can just go in there for 2-3 hours and just put on tunes and have a bit of dance by myself.
Yeah.
You know, like
no one's just watching.
Well, they ain't.
So I can dance how I want to dance. And you can bust some moves.
Bottle of rum goes on the table, tunes come out. I'm totally in my own zone. You know, like I don't need anybody. I'm actually like, I'm turning my phone off. You know what I mean? Because I don't want anybody to interrupt this moment. And then food, like you know, a good plate of Saturday soup, like definitely takes me to my happy places. You know, a bowl of Saturday soup takes me into so many different environments that were, you know. So how I got into the Sheffield community was through a bowl of soup. I used to go to the Hub for.
Oh yeah,
the Hub gets mentioned a lot. I have to say, so a shout out to the Hub. The Cold Case.
They helped them in.
They was the bunch of guys that actually put me on. So Cold Case, Colvin Williams, Clinton McCoy, Dave Campbell, Des Smith, Val. You know, Pam. You know, there's loads of people that I walked into a community centre. And they went, well, go on. Didn't kick me back out. And it was like, yo, there's food getting served in the hall, gone yam. And, you know, for me, that was a really good entry point. So that bowl of Saturday soup, for me, was key. and will remain key. You know, I know it's a tool that we can use forever and a day to kind of bring our communities together. And yeah, those are the two things that I kind of really you know, when I'm in like really desperation, I'm like,
set the Sulpan music.
Set the suit of the music.
So what can we expect from you probably in the next few months?
Nothing.
Or so there's no
loud and proud. That was.
There is no book in the horizon.
Don't expect nothing from me. What I'm doing is what I'm doing. Like, no, genuinely, I've moved past that point where I need to achieve certain things because I've achieved a lot. I've got to leave space for the generation behind me. So, you know, if I grow too high and too fast, you know, I become like Icarus. And for me, it's about what information do I need to leave behind so we don't go back around in the same cycle. So, you know, my thing is more of, you know, youngsters make businesses, like understand your business from the start. So, you know, I work in the music industry. A lot of people don't understand where the financial streams are in music. They don't understand mechanical rights. They don't understand copyright. You know, all these different, you know, financial streams. All they're looking at is how many people are liking my music. So for me, it's about imparting in that. Also, letting people understand how much value they have. You know. The latest one is data. You know, did you know that if you have a car crash and it's recorded properly, that car crash is actually worth about £10 million to the companies? So if you think about that, you know, we're worth £1 million when we're dying on the pavement, stabbed up. You know, so if you understand your own worth, it's easier for you to kind of, you know, love yourself. You know, I know I'm worth £1 million. You know, bleeding out on the pavement. You know, like that's a different concept to being a no mark. You know what I mean? So yeah, the reason why I carry myself with pride is because I know what I'm worth to the outside world. You know.
I think that's a great place to carry yourself with pride.
Carry yourself with pride. Thanks a lot, bro.
No, it's been a pleasure.
You know, really.
It's been brilliant.
I'm still waiting for that book. Or something.
A lot of people have asked me for the book, you know, but I don't think I was ever in a place previously to be able to write that book because I call it my boxes. I put my trauma. I had this image in my head where I was putting trauma into boxes, putting them to the back of my mind, and thinking, I'm moving on. It's not affecting me. And recently, I've started opening them boxes and being in contact with my emotions. So I've learned how to cry again.
I was about to ask you, when's the last time you cried, bro?
So before I kind of cried, like recently, it must have been a good 15, 20 years.
It's a good while, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it takes something really extreme to get me going, you know what I mean? And now I can access that emotion, which is a relief. You can understand why.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, people kind of...
It's necessary.
Yeah. But masculinity doesn't teach you that. You know, alpha masculinity doesn't, you know... Me cry. Man don't cry.
Man don't cry. But man might be dying inside, but man don't cry. Anger is easier to handle than the source of the anger, which could be, you know, the whatever it might be, could be. But crying is a much more difficult one to show. I can show anger. Well, I'm not saying I do show anger, but when you're growing up, anger is easier than crying.
Yeah, totally. But you have to deal with the consequences of anger after it. So, but you know, having a good cry.
I think I'm with you on that one there.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I think for me, it's like what stops. I find it hard. You know, the anger bit is hard for me. So maybe because it's like it's constant waterworks. So. I don't have the energy, for anger, bro.
The question I need to ask you is, which Ngani am I talking to right now?
No,
Because you just changed persona, right?
I'm telling you.
Before he's the hatless, now he's got a hat.
Oh yeah, no.
Ooh, got road. Are we gonna get a ski mask or something?
No, wait. Hey, let me tell you.
Is your older road man? Big man road man.
This is like,
Road man Luch.
no, this is like, like I'm constantly cold, Literally, it's like now, now, I'm confused.
Mind you, I was looking
to England.
I don't know. You know what? That's a question I've been I'm trying to kind of figure that one
look,
out.
Daddy, I was looking at you on there. I was thinking, hold on now, that man's hench now. Look at him with all his muscles showing there. He's taking off his. I'm not taking my jumper off, and there you are with your tight T-shirt on, like you're a big man.
Let me tell you, I have.
Wait, that T-shirt is a bit tight. Those sleeves are like.
Yes, he's big.
And it's not even
rolling it up all the time.
He went to the hench file.
He's been bigging himself up home.
There's like small, medium.
No, this is all my T-shirt can't fit me. It's like I've lost so much weight, bro. It's like it's unreal. Now I have to dig into my son's
What, they're too big for you?
Yeah, they're too big.
They don't show you form.
No.
Hey, if you're spending the money spending at Virgin, he wants people to see.
But I've always spoken about this thing that we don't train. It's like like my missus doesn't look at me and think, oh yeah. She'll probably tell me, oh, you've lost too much weight.
Yeah.
But it's like we it's like only a guy will come up to you and say, so how much are you benching?
We'll
do it for other men.
We'll show you. You're looking good, Lungan. Is that what you're fishing for?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Definitely road man.
Come on.
Sorry.
Thank you very much.
One last question.
Right.
What kind of kit do you wear to the gym? Are the T-shirts tighter? The shorts? You got them little shorts, the body shorts. You got the body shorts.
Hey, Lloyd, you walk past him in there, and there's a mirror.
He needs some help.
Hey, guys, I don't drink rum or anything, so it's like I don't have any biases, bro.
I
You know what I mean?
Hey, Lloyd, can I say thank you very much?
Thank you, bro.
It's been
Thank you
great
very
to have
much,
you there,
man.
and lots and lots of things we had to talk about there.
That's what I'm saying. If he came up with a book, I'm
he asked
queuing
everyone
up for
about
that.
a book there. You're the one who's got to write a book, Lungardi.
As I said, I'll write a book when I can deal with the trauma. I don't want to pour this all out and then I've got to deal with it.
Absolutely. Did you ever? I mean, I read what's his name's book now, David Harewood's book.
Yes.
And that is hard to read, man.
Thank you for joining us today.
He said he struggled
Don't
afterwards.
forget to
I
subscribe
can understand
on your
because
favorite podcast
I struggled with it.
And
Well,
never
I
miss
did a
an
film
episode.
with
Until next time,
Richard Buell.
keep those
and it was
conversations
supposed-
going.
They wanted to take me down
And
the
the clip was
stereotypical
buzzing.
route.
With Richard,